Hello, this is Nick. I'm going to show you the waste oil burner. I did a video last night. It was pretty dark. Stupid dog over there. We've got our oil reservoir here, and it leads, and this usually hangs up. It's just sitting down so that I can display it here. Oil goes through the line because of gravity. This is a plastic line, and then underneath this is a metal line. Now right here, this is a tomato juice can, and using an angle grinder, I cut a square section for a fan unit like this one, and that provides airflow for our fire, and it's right off to the side. That way the oil line can go through the center, and it goes to what is an oil can under there. An oil can like one of these or one of these, and basically all I did was take a can opener and take off the bottom of it, and then afterwards, after you do that, I'm spilling oil out of that, there's still a rim here, and using a bit of bent hanger, I was able to put two nozzles. There's the one that's usually on the top, like this, and then there's one in the center, and the piece of wire hanger actually keeps it in the center. And basically what's happening, now this one isn't straight, but these two here that I used were both straight ones, so you just have to kind of imagine that one goes inside of the other, and of course the one was cut off quite short. And then the second one that goes through the center is a full size, all the way down to a very small nozzle, and I even crimped it a bit to get a more smaller flow of oil out of it. And of course the center one that's held by a hanger is connected to our metal oil line, which eventually goes to the plastic, which eventually goes to the oil reservoir. So that's how it gets... Okay, now you'll notice that the inner nozzle is butted up right against the edge, and that's actually, it's pointing out a little bit too much. But because of the fact that inside here is being pressurized by this fan, air is blowing around that inner nozzle, and that basically creates a Venturi action that pulls that oil that's just barely leaking out of there, pulls it right out of there, and it mists it out into the combustion chamber, which is just a tomato paste can. And all this stuff that I did, I used a can opener, needle nose pliers, an angle grinder, basic tools. I didn't even use a drill. Like that hole there was just punched through with a screwdriver and a hammer. But basically that just affixes right there onto that whole assembly, and then everything just squirts right into the combustion chamber, the combination of air and the misted oil. Basically that Venturi action, it atomizes the oil so that it can be ignited very easily. So yeah, that's the basic setup of the whole thing. Oil flows through the line all the way to that center piece. Air blows right around it because of the fan in the back, and that mists all that oil along with the air, and then it's combusted inside of our combustion chamber right here. And I guess now I'll cut, and we'll come back and I'll show you it being fired up. Oh, and before I fired it up, I wanted to say that everything here also, what it's held together with is like this. I just made a hole in the plastic and put it in there. It just holds itself in. All this stuff's painter's tape. We've got some screws holding the fan in, but otherwise you can see ridges along here. That's actually string. So all this stuff is held together with string, painter's tape, basic friction like that. That's not held together with anything special. It just holds itself in place. So it's just string, tape, a couple of screws. It's all very simple to make. So we'll come back and fire her up. Okay, now some basics on the system. You saw what the fan unit is, and it's a 12-volt fan. And so for that, we have a 12-volt adapter that plugs into any outlet here in the U.S. That is. But 12 volts is fairly standard. I'd stick to 12 volts because you know, it's not all that difficult to find a 12-volt source. And then on to starting this. It's not all that complex, but you do have to get a nice hot fire going inside of the combustion chamber for the oil to begin to ignite. So what we're using, and there's a little bit of rain here, so this piece of wood is a bit wet, but we're going to use just some newspaper, a little bit of cardboard, and we're just going to stick one small piece of wood in there. Also, on the inside, we have one small rock. Now what that rock does is when the fire gets real nice and hot, it'll start to glow, and anytime the fire tries to put itself out, or just starts to go out, that kind of acts like a glow plug in a diesel engine, and will allow the fire to reignite more easily. So that's all we're doing. Put a rock in there, use paper, cardboard, and a piece of wood. I'll go ahead and cut and shove that stuff in there. Okay, so we've got some paper sticking out of the top, and we've got a piece of wood at the back, and a little bit of cardboard at the bottom. Now all I'm going to do is add just a little bit of oil and try and not get it on the paper. I'm going to try and get it down towards the bottom, just a few teeny drips. That's all it takes to prime the system, just a few little teeny drops. And then in just a second, I'm going to fill this up, the oil reservoir, which is hung with a piece of string, and gravity will help feed the system. But I'm not going to fill it on camera. I'll fill it off camera because I want to have fire nice and handy. I'll come back to you just as soon as I got a piece of fire in my hand and I'm ready to light this up. Okay, we've got to get a bit of fire here. Let's try to set this. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Okay, now we'll plug the system in. I filled some with oil, vegetable oil. Let's try to move it a bit away from that side brick. So it's starting to fire up. It's not running off the oil yet. You'll be able to hear a difference once it does. Kind of a whooshing sound like a jet. For a minute or so it'll be running off of the cardboard and that piece of wood. Which is one of the reasons some of the flames are so high. You can't really see it with this camera, but they're shooting pretty high. But you can hear the whooshing, which is the oil burning there. And yesterday I mentioned that I had some nails stuck in the oil line for strict flow, so I could get just the right flow, and you can see them now. So yeah, basically all that's happening is gravity is helping this oil flow down through the line, and then the air rushing past the nozzle is also helping pull it and mist it inside of the combustion chamber and turn it into fire instead of just plain old oil. I'm not going to disrupt the positioning of any of that wood or paper or anything. I found that if you sit there and play with it, all you're doing is messing up I don't know, the natural order of how it's making its own fire. It's best to just let it do its thing. This is about to cut out, so we'll come back in a few minutes once the piece of wood has been fully used. Well, the wood's not completely exhausted, but it's right next to it. We're basically running on just about nothing but oil now. Yeah, that was good. Well, we got some good like circular cyclone action a little bit. It's hard to see with the camera. The naked eye, it's much easier to see, but this thing puts off a nice warmth there, that's for sure. And in fact, just right before I started, I heard one of these bricks crack from the heat. But there it's going. The oil hasn't really gone down that much. It is it's a very small heater. I built it to be fairly small to perhaps eventually heat a small room, something like that. It's running along pretty good. So yeah, anybody out there can use my ideas and try to build their own. And I'm sure that'd be a fun project. It was for me. Just need a nice high output fan. This one uses like 12 watts. You need a couple of oil cans, a tomato paste can, a tomato juice can, some metal line, some plastic line, soda bottle, cut off the bottom. I tied a string to that part and then to this top part, and then that comes up and that allows it to hang upside down. The nozzles fit together. You need one that's straight and it'll fit inside the other one, and then a piece of wire hanger can go around this thing to hold it in place, using the rim on the inside of this to hold it in place, and then the metal line just goes right in there. You might need some sealant or something to keep that in place, but yeah, and then it just and then the one that goes inside the other, this one would be cut somewhere around here. That way you can get a lot of airflow through there. But yeah, and then it goes through there, you light it, you get fire. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.